Meet Seong Gi-hun, a guy whose life seems to be a never-ending string of epic fails. Picture this, Gi-hun is broke, drowning in debt, and his days are basically a highlight reel of L's that just keep on coming. He lives with his elderly mom, and his financial mess is so bad that even his daughter is slipping away into the arms of his ex-wife's rich new husband. Yup, things are as grim as they sound. Now, normally you'd think things couldn't get any worse, but oh boy, they do. Gi-hun's life is one absurd mishap after another, when you're juggling loan sharks who might as well be demons that they'd even have you sign over your organs if you don't cough up cash, which is a reality that's harsher than any bad reality TV show. You start wondering if the universe is having a joke at your expense. One weird day, while Gi-hun is scraping by and dodging trouble like it's an Olympic sport, fate, or maybe just absurd luck, steps in. While riding the subway, our guy bumps into a very fancy dude with impeccable style and a mysterious air. Now, this isn't your run-of-the-mill, here's a business card kind of meeting. No, this guy's got a proposition that seems straight out of a movie. "Hey you look like you could use some cash," the mysterious man practically says with his eyes. He challenges Gi-hun to a game of dakji, a simple paper-flipping game reminiscent of Korean pogs. Here's the catch. If you win, you get a little extra money. If you lose, well, let's just say you get a good hard slap in the face. And trust me, the slaps are real enough to make anyone rethink their life choices. Gi-hun, already desperate and with not much to lose, dives in. At first it's just a series of paper flips and near misses. He takes a couple of brutal swats, both figuratively and maybe literally, from the fancy guy as the stakes pile up. But after what feels like 100 papers slapped and a whole lot of embarrassment, our down-on-his-luck hero finally wins a round. As if that wasn't enough to shake him up, Mr. Fancy Hands hands Gi-hun a mysterious invitation. It's not a reward like, "Good job, here's a pat on the back." It's an invite to something far bigger, something with astronomical cash prizes on the line. The invitation comes with a phone number and a promise of a life-changing opportunity. Drowning in his woes and bad decisions, Gi-hun calls the number without a second thought. And before he can even ask, "What have I gotten myself into?" he's whisked away in a shady van. And not just any van, the kind that gives off serious sleeper agent meets midnight heist vibes, complete with mysterious sedatives, okay, maybe sleeping gas, lurking about. Next thing Gi-hun knows, he wakes up in a place that could easily be mistaken for the set of a bizarre cult recruitment video. He's in a huge dormitory filled with 455 other desperate souls, all wearing identical green tracksuits and stamped with numbers, like a twisted team photo where everyone's a number and no one's allowed to be unique. Gi-hun quickly learns he's been tagged as player 456. It's as if fate marched him from one misfortune to another, piling on the "you're just another cog in the machine" vibe. The dorm itself is creepy in a colorfully tactical way. The walls are painted in bland pastels, the bunks are lined up in military precision, and the whole space smells faintly of disinfectant and despair. It's a far cry from what you'd expect in a place promising fortune. Instead, you get cues that say, "Welcome to our exclusive death club." Murmurs ripple through the dorm as the players try to piece together their situation. Some whisper that this might be a twisted social experiment. Others worry that the cash prize is just a lure to trap losers like themselves. As the players huddle together on their bunks, trading nervous glances and half-formed theories, you can almost hear one of them say, "Dude, this is like a bad dream you can't wake up from." Amid all the panic, someone even cracks a joke. "At least the beds are clean, right?" Which somehow makes the horror just a little bit funnier. Just when the players start to settle into the eerie normalcy of their new home, a booming voice echoes through the dorm's speakers. Even though it sounds as dry and robotic as a customer service hotline on a bad day, its message is clear. Your next challenge is on the horizon, and it's not going to be a walk in the park. This voice tells them that they're not here to rest or complain. Nah, they're here to play games. Not the fun kind you get on your phone, but childhood games with a twist so deadly it makes a roller coaster seem like a calm carousel ride. Now, this is where things get absolutely nuts. The fabled first game is about to kick things off, and it's called Red Light, Green Light. On the surface, it sounds like your classic kids game, a little fun running back and forth while some giant doll keeps watch. But here's the twist. If you move at the wrong time, you're not just losing the game, you're losing your life. A giant, creepy doll sits at one end of a massive field. Its eyes seem to track every movement, like it's got some supernatural superpower of doom. When the doll's voice booms, "Green light," the players start moving. The tension is thick. You can practically feel the dread in the air, mixed with a crazy hope. But here's where it all goes off the rails. When the doll calls out red light, every single soul is supposed to freeze. It's a moment of pure, heart-stopping suspense. At first, there's a bit of laughter and playful mischief among the players. Maybe someone thinks, come on, it's just a game, right? But that false sense of security is shattered in an instant. The moment someone, bless their unlucky heart, moves while the doll's back is turned, a bullet finds its mark. That's it. In one split second, that player is removed from the game forever, sniped like an extra in an action movie that you definitely did not sign up to star in. Panic erupts. The field turns into a mad scramble of frozen bodies and desperate sprints. Our guy Gi-hun is right there in the chaos, nearly tripping over his own feet. At one point, as he's about to lose his balance, another player grabs him, like a last-minute save in a sports movie, and helps him keep his cool. Throughout that horrifying minute, every face tells the story of what it means to be on the brink. The initial laughter morphs instantly into silent terror. Once the whistle blows to signal the end of the first round, an eerie silence falls over the field. Those who survived, scarred, trembling, and utterly shell-shocked, gather together like survivors in a horror movie's closing scene. There's no celebration here. Instead, there's only the heavy realization that they've just danced with death and lived to tell the tale. By the time the survivors are led back into the grand dorm, the shock of the red light, green light game still clings to them like a bad smell. Gi-hun, whose body is still shaking and whose heart feels like it might just burst out of his chest, begins to process what just happened. In quiet moments, as players sit on their bunks or huddle in corners trying to piece together what comes next, you catch snippets of conversation that are half-whispered strategy sessions, half cries of disbelief. I can't believe we're here, one guy murmurs, trying to convince himself that it's all some bizarre prank. Another replies, if this isn't hell, then I don't know what is. And somewhere in the background, Gi-hun is silently vowing that he's not going to let this twisted carnival break him, despite the overwhelming odds stacked against him. Episode 2. After witnessing the brutal end of red light, green light, the mood among the players was as low as you can get. You could feel in the air that no one wanted to stick around any longer. They had just seen people vanish from one moment to the next, and the shock was enough to knock the wind out of anyone. The tension in the room was heavy, and everyone was thinking the same thing. I want out of this mess. They didn't want to be part of any more of this deadly game. Then came the twist. The organizers had a rule that said if most players voted to quit the game, they could actually leave. Sounds like a lifeline, right? So, the idea of having an exit option sparked a glimmer of hope among the desperate souls trapped in this nightmare. The players began talking among themselves. Some whispered quietly to their neighbors, "Do you think we should actually take this chance? Can we really just leave?" Others looked around in disbelief, as if hoping that someone would slam their fists on their desks and shout, "Enough is enough!" The mood was desperate and almost hopeful at the same time. Now, here is where the suspense really kicked in. The vote had to be close, and after some long moments of uncertainty, the final vote was left to none other than player 001, an elderly man who, oddly enough, seemed way too happy to be a part of this terrible show. Imagine that, an old guy who doesn't look the least bit scared and even wears a big mischievous smile while everyone else is trembling in fear. The entire future of all these players rested on his decision. The players waited in silence, their eyes following his every move as he pondered the weight of his vote. After what felt like ages, the old man finally made his choice. With a calm and steady voice that belied the tension around him, player 001 voted to end the game. In that very moment, the decision was made, and just like that, every single player was sent home. It was as if they had all been given a free pass out of the nightmare they'd been living through. At least, that's what it looked like on the surface. But here's where everything takes a dark, twisted turn. Gi-hun, our main man, returns to reality, thinking that maybe, just maybe, he's finally free. But surprise, his life still sucks. The dream of leaving this place turns out to be nothing more than a cruel joke. Outside of the game, his problems are enormous. His mom is sick, his debts have only grown worse, and his daughter is moving away. It's a shock to realize that the escape from the deadly games didn't magically fix his life. Instead, Gi-hun is met with the harsh, unyielding truth of his everyday struggles. And he's not alone. Other players have their own piles of problems waiting for them when they step back into the real world. One guy finds himself on the run because the police are after him. Imagine trying to outrun your past while still feeling the weight of life's constant misfortunes. Then, there's a young girl who needs every bit of money to bring her family to safety. Her eyes hold a mix of hope and deep sorrow as she faces an uncertain future. And then there's another player, a man who got completely scammed in life and now has no way out. It's hard to swallow how, even when given the choice to leave the deadly game, life outside proves to be just as brutal. So, what do all these players do? Here's the jaw-dropping part. Despite having been sent home, they voluntarily choose to go back to the death games. You heard that right. They sign up once again to risk it all because, honestly, life outside is so broken that the chance to win the death games seems like a way out, a slim chance at a better life. It's a decision that speaks volumes about how desperate and ruined their lives are. When everything around you is unfair and painful, sometimes the only hope you can see is one that comes wrapped in danger. The players are back, and this time the air practically crackles with dread and maybe a few nervous giggles because they know what's coming. No more panicky flailing or tearful pleas for mercy. Now it's all eyes, focus, and a dash of desperate determination. They've just survived a round that could downgrade your trust in gravity itself, and now the next challenge is set to remind them that in this bizarre contest of life and death, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Welcome to Game 2, the infamous Honeycomb Candy Challenge. It sounds cute, right? A childhood treat everyone used to adore until someone cracked it open on your birthday cake. Well, except here, one wrong move can shatter your future along with that fragile candy. Players have to choose a shape at random: circle, triangle, star, or umbrella. And as if choosing a shape out of a hat wasn't enough, you then get handed a delicate honeycomb candy embossed with that exact shape. Your mission is as straightforward as it is cruel. Carve out the design without breaking the candy apart. A tiny nick means instant elimination, and trust me, no one wants to be the one with a failed candy carving debut under their belt. For most of the contestants, this challenge is like stepping into a twisted remake of good old recess games, except that instead of dodgeball, you're meticulously slicing away at your edible death warrant. The irony is too rich. Something that was once a cheerful treat is now a high-stakes battle against a confectionery calamity. It's as if the game designers took the phrase sugar rush and decided to add a fatal twist. And then there's Gi-hun. Oh, Gi-hun. If unlucky were an Olympic sport, he'd have a mountain of gold medals by now. Fate, clearly having a wicked sense of humor, hands him the dreaded umbrella shape. Now, on a normal day, an umbrella picture might spark thoughts like, hey, I might actually need one of these on a rainy day. But in the deadly halls of Squid Game, that umbrella is a full-blown nightmare. Its intricate curves and tiny details make it hands down the worst shape a player could hope to receive. It's as if the universe itself said, forget sunshine and rainbows, here's an umbrella to keep you wet. At the moment Gi-hun sees it, his stomach drops faster than the price of candy on discount during a clearance sale. He's staring at that tiny outline on his honeycomb candy, like it's the blueprint for his inevitable doom. But then, in a twist that could only be scripted by a writer with a penchant for dark humor, Gi-hun notices something odd. The candy is starting to soften. His eyes narrow as he realizes that his saliva is slowly melting the surface, turning his candy into a potential work of art. Now, if you're imagining a heroic montage complete with a soaring soundtrack, think again. This is less Rocky and more, oh my gosh, I'm licking my candy. In a moment that looks as absurd as it is sublime, Gi-hun decides that if he can't carve the design with a tool, he might as well use what nature has provided. And so he starts licking that fragile candy with the desperation of someone who's about to lose everything, and we're here for it. Each movement of his tongue is slow, almost ritualistic, as if every lick is a prayer sent to the candy gods. The sight is simultaneously grotesque and strangely heroic. You can almost hear the collective heartbeat of the audience, if there were one, as Gi-hun battles against both time and a candy that seems to have a built-in failsafe for breaking under pressure. When life gives you candy, make sure not to break it, someone might quip, if they weren't too busy clutching their own piece of fate. And while Gi-hun's lips work overtime, the other players are busy trying to handle their own sugary challenges. Some opt for the traditional tool method, delicately scraping away at the edges, while others, perhaps in a mix of panic and bravado, swing their tools with all the precision of a clumsy chef in a pressure cooker. The room buzzes with tension and the occasional nervous joke. I always thought candy was supposed to be sweet and simple, one player mutters as he watches a rival's candy shatter into what looks like microscopic confetti. Guess not in here. It's more like candy on the edge of a nervous breakdown. The humor is as dark as the situation, and yet it offers a fleeting moment of relief in an otherwise oppressive atmosphere. Every shattered candy is met with a silent nod of understanding from the remaining players, a shared unspoken recognition that in this game, even a childhood treat has turned against them. Time ticks by with mocking regularity. The timer looms overhead, a relentless reminder that every second wasted is another step closer to elimination. The rhythmic tapping of a tool scraping against candy is anything but soothing. It's a countdown in miniature to a disaster just waiting to happen. Meanwhile, amidst this fraught environment, Gi-hun's determination only intensifies. His tongue dances over the candy like it's performing a ballet choreographed in the key of desperation. There's a humor in the absurdity. Here he is, using his own spit as a tool of survival, proving that when you're backed into a corner, sometimes your only option is to literally lick your way out of trouble. Onlookers can't help but be both horrified and oddly entertained entertained by the spectacle. "I never thought I'd see someone turn a candy break into a full-on licking marathon," whispers one competitor, half in amazement and half in horror. Laughter, shaky and unconvincing, sporadically punctuates the otherwise tense silence. It's the kind of laugh that comes from knowing that sometimes, in the midst of a nightmare, you have to laugh or risk crying. And if Gi-hun's method is any indication, survival may just be the ultimate slapstick comedy. Around him, mismatched strategies unfold like scenes from a dark circus. One player, with the confidence of a person who's never experienced failure, starts off by channeling his inner sculptor. He meticulously traces the shape with his tool, every motion slow and deliberate, only for his nerves to betray him with a tiny tremor, enough to send the delicate candy into a spiderweb of cracks. "Well, that candy just went from hero to zero," he jokes bitterly, as his teammate gives him a look that says, "Dude, it's not funny when you're about to be eliminated." As more and more players face the demise of their sweet tickets to survival, the air thickens with the bittersweet aroma of melted candy and shattered dreams. Each failure is a punctuation mark, a hard final end to a story that began with innocence and, by the end, concludes in despair. And yet, despite the constant threat of a sugar-coated demise, the players continue to muster humor. It's as if destiny is handing out grim knock-knock jokes along with fatal challenges. "Knock knock," one player might quip. "Who's there? Broken candy." And even though the joke falls flat, it's enough to momentarily lighten the crushing weight of their reality. Gi-hun's struggle becomes a focal point for all of this dark comedy. His tongue, slick and earnest, is a small beacon of ingenuity in a sea of despair. With every determined lick, he chips away at not just the candy, but also at the suffocating notion that fate has him cornered. "Of all the shapes in this nightmare, I got the umbrella," he thinks, half mocking his own misfortune. "Next time, can I at least get a circle? They're practically the snack of champions." The humor in his silent inner monologue is a defiant laugh in the face of a system rigged to break you, whether through shattered candy or shattered hope. Minutes stretch into what feels like an eternity of scrutiny, as if the very seconds are judging each move. Around him, the suspense heightens. The remaining players, some scrabbling valiantly with their tools, others inching towards a brave licking strategy, are all locked in their own battles. Each participant is a study in human emotion under pressure, nerves so taut they could snap, eyes brimming with a mix of terror and determination, and a desperate will to outsmart a game that has already cost too many lives. "I guess we're all just here trying to sweet-talk our way to the end," one player murmurs to another, eliciting a chuckle even as they work on their precarious candies. And then, amid the flurry of nervous activity, it happens. Gi-hun's persistence pays off. His tongue, slick with the residue of hope and a hint of disgust, finally cleans away the last stubborn shard of candy obscuring the umbrella design. For a beat, one long heart-pounding beat, the entire room seems to hold its breath. Then, as if the universe can't believe the absurdity of it all, the outline of the umbrella emerges pristine and intact. There's a collective exhale, a mix of relief that practically vibrates through the air, and a smattering of incredulous laughter. "Gross! Yes. Genius? Absolutely," someone remarks with a wry smile, and even the notoriously grim-faced competitors can't help but crack a laugh at the sheer ridiculousness of the moment. In that instant, Gi-hun's victory is sealed, not with the elegance of a master sculptor, but with the raw, desperate brilliance of a man who refused to let fate decide his end with a single slip. His victory is a testament to the human spirit, resourceful, unpredictable, and willing to turn an everyday act as silly as licking candy into a move of pure survival. It's a moment that encapsulates the bizarre humor of this deadly game, a reminder that even in the darkest scenarios, a spark of ingenuity and a sense of humor can blaze through. But the room isn't celebrating with unfettered joy. The bittersweet atmosphere is punctuated by a series of muted smiles and knowing glances. Everyone here knows the score. Every safe candy, every squeaky clean shape carved out or licked free, comes at the expense of another's shattered hopes. A glance across the room tells tales of friends lost to careless strokes and trembling hands. And while Gi-hun's triumph brings a brief respite in the tension, it also underscores the harsh reality that only the wiliest and sometimes the weirdest ideas will survive this brutal contest. As the honeycomb candy challenge winds down, the survivors huddle together, some clapping quietly, others joking about the absurdity of their new life skills. "Who knew licking could be considered an art form?" one of them jokes, eliciting a few more chuckles amid the subdued relief, a fleeting moment of levity before the ever-looming next challenge. In this twisted place, humor becomes a shield, a way to fend off the oppressive dread of what's coming next, even when every laugh is tinged with sorrow and a reminder of all that's been lost. By now, everybody knows this isn't just a game, it's war. In the Squid Game arena, every player is desperate, every alliance formed out of sheer necessity, because when people are willing to do anything to win, you never want to face it alone. Our guy Gi-hun finds himself bonded with a crew you wouldn't expect to become comrades, But fate has a funny way of putting together a team when life is on the line. There's his old childhood friend, Sang-woo, whose sharp wit and cool head have saved them more times than anyone could count. Then there's Se-byok, a tough, no-nonsense North Korean girl with eyes that have seen too much hardship, yet a fire that refuses to go out. Ali, the kind-hearted and way too trusting guy, rounds out the group, his generosity a trait in a world where trust is as rare as mercy. And finally, player 001, the cheerful old man whose decades of living life seem to have equipped him with one of the most down-to-earth strategies of all. Next up is Game 3, Tug of War. Sounds easy, right? But make no mistake, if you lose, every person on your team gets pulled off a narrow platform and sent crashing to their death. There is no room for slip-ups or misplaced confidence here. It's do or die with every tug of the rope, and every second counts. On one side of the platform stands Gi-hun's team, a collection of underdogs whose hearts are as big as their determination. On the other stands a team of muscleheads, the kind of players who look like they were born for brute force. Their arms flex with raw power, their eyes fixed on obliterating any hope the underdogs might have. It almost looks like the outcome is written in advance until something unexpected happens. Before the game even kicks off, a moment of clarity comes from the seasoned old man. With a steady voice that cuts through the tension, he lays it on the line. The trick is simple. Don't just use your strength straight away. Wait for them to tire themselves out. Lean back, hold tight, and when they're exhausted, then take 3 big steps forward. It's not rocket science. It's the very wisdom of years spent playing tug of war on every creaky playground imaginable. The game begins with a deafening silence broken by the thud of determined feet. Gi-hun grips the rope, feeling the weight of everything riding on that moment. His team moves in a rhythm that almost seems rehearsed, each pull carefully synchronized. For a few heartbeats, it looks like their calculated moves might actually thwart the sheer force of their opponents. The underdogs, as unlikely as they seem, are even pulling ahead for a moment, a fragile victory that hangs by a thread. Then, almost without warning, the muscle-bound team finds their strategy. They start pulling back with all the strength they have, and the balance shifts. The platform begins to tilt, and fear grips every member of Gi-hun's team. The enemy's dominance seems absolute. Their raw power is like an avalanche with no sign of slowing down. For a moment, all hope seems lost. It is in this climactic instant that desperation turns into brilliance. With no time to waste, Sang-woo breaks the heavy silence. His voice rings out clear and urgent. Take 3 big steps forward, like a battle cry that cuts through the despair like a knife through tension. In that electrifying second, everything changes. Every member of Gi-hun's team hears the call and moves as one. Their steps are large, confident, and perfectly in sync. 3 bold steps taken at exactly the right moment. The effect is instantaneous and extraordinary. The enemy, so sure of their might, finds themselves thrown completely off balance. Their grip falters, and for the first time, the tide of the battle shifts dramatically. Like dominoes being knocked over one by one, the muscleheads lose their footing. The coordinated move sends a ripple of shock through their ranks. In a breathtaking moment of chaos, they slip off the edge of the trembling platform. Their fall is both a stunning reversal of fate and a vivid reminder that in this deadly game, nothing is ever as simple as it appears. But even as Gi-hun's team clutches the rope and barely manages to hold on, victory feels as unstable as the platform itself. There is no time to celebrate. The win is narrow, too narrow, and the danger is far from over. Every player looks around, sweat mixing with fear, knowing that if they get complacent even for a second, the game could turn fatal in an instant. The tug-of-war round is over, but its impact is immense. In those few minutes of raw terror and unexpected genius, a simple command shifted the balance between life and death. It isn't just about who has more muscle, it's about wit, timing, and trust. And that is the lesson the old man shared with them all. Wait for the perfect moment, then charge like you mean it. The team gathers around the rope, which only minutes ago was a lifeline, now transformed into a symbol of their unity and courage.
Gi-hun looks at his teammates, each face painted with a mixture of relief and dawning determination. Sang-woo's eyes still carry the echo of that desperate command. Se-byok, ever the silent warrior, nods with a hint of a smile that speaks of survival against the odds. And Ali, whose trusting heart makes him vulnerable yet endearing, clutches the rope as if squeezing all his hope into it. There is a strange mix of humor in the absurdity of it all. A game that could end in falling to a fatal drop is saved by a move that sounds as if it was borrowed from a schoolyard lesson. Take 3 big steps forward, a phrase that might make you chuckle under normal circumstances, but today, it saved their lives. The dark irony of the moment is not lost on them. It is almost comical that, in a deadly contest, a simple, almost silly plan becomes the secret to survival. Conversations are few but heavy with meaning. Ali, Lee, still a bit trembling but with a touch of wonder in his voice, whispers that maybe the game isn't all about brute force after all. Se-byok's steely gaze hardens with determination as she silently vows to always watch for that perfect moment. And Sang-woo, still coming off the high of that split-second decision, knows that sometimes it's your ability to choose the right moment that counts most in a life-and-death game. After tug of war, the air in the dorm isn't just thick with sweat and terror, it's downright charged with raw, unfiltered panic. The players have finally learned that in this twisted game, waiting around for someone else to hit the kill switch is a luxury they can no longer afford. Tonight, the rules seem to have changed. Instead of waiting for the next official round, everybody's decided that self-preservation includes a dash of personal initiative. And so, the dorm transforms into a full-blown, unscripted battlefield. It all starts innocently enough, with whispered discussions and furtive glances exchanged between players. Initially, it might look like a secret planning session. Hey, maybe we should stick together tonight. But suddenly, alliances collapse faster than a sugar-coated candy under pressure. The players, fueled by fear and frustration, begin turning on each other. One moment, you have a tense conversation about who might be next, and the next, fists fly, and guests of the night are being chased down narrow halls like extras in an action movie gone wrong. Gi-hun's team, already reeling from the earlier orchestrated games, finds itself cast into chaos. They try their best to form a semblance of order, ducking and dodging as the dorm erupts into a frenzy of desperate survival. "This isn't a game anymore. It's do or die," shouts one of the team members as they scramble to protect one another. Amid the stabbing of makeshift melee weapons and erratic shouts, it feels as though any safe haven is a myth. But in a twisted sort of camaraderie, Gi-hun's crew clings together, managing to dodge stray blows. And while the players are busy wrestling, lunging, and sometimes literally pinning their despair onto one another, there's a murky side to tonight's pandemonium unfolding behind the scenes. Unbeknownst to most of the terrified players sparring in the frazzled corridors, some of the guards, yes, the very men in uniform who are supposed to maintain a sort of order in this murderous game, are secretly running a black market operation. In this case, those pockets are being filled with stolen organs. Some guards have decided that it's far more lucrative to harvest players' organs than to simply watch them crumble one game at a time. The big boss himself, known simply as the front man or ugly man since we can't see his face, also happens to be watching them. When word of the rogue guards and their illicit dealings reaches his carefully curated ear, it's game over for those disloyal enforcers. The front man does not tolerate cheating, even when the cheating involves something as grotesque as organ trafficking in a contest where human life is already hanging by a thread. With the cool detachment of a seasoned orchestrator of death, he steps in to tip the scales back in favor of his meticulously designed plan. In an unforgettable scene that could rival any over-the-top detective film, the front man confronts the wayward guards. His words are curt and his actions swift. No one, he makes it clear, is above the rules, even if those rules are cruel beyond belief. With a few chilling moves that leave no doubt about his power, he sends the rogue guards packing. Back in the dorm, as the night swells with both internal strife and external horror, the player's sense of safety is shattered beyond repair. No one can relax for even a moment. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow flitting past, triggers another round of frantic reactions and panicked glances. It seems that survival here no longer depends solely on winning the official games. It depends equally on outsmarting your fellow players in unsanctioned skirmishes. "I can't trust anyone," mutters one desperate soul as he hides behind a broken piece of furniture, scanning the corridors with eyes that dart from one hiding figure to the next. "Maybe I should have figured out by now that in this place, everyone's out for themselves." It's a sentiment that ripples through every corner of the battered dorm, underscoring a grim new reality. Safety isn't granted, it's taken by force, and sometimes at the cost of your very humanity. As midnight approaches, the battle inside the dorm intensifies in both ferocity and hopelessly chaotic energy. The initial spark of spontaneous rebellion has now grown into a full-scale identity crisis for the players. They're no longer just contestants in a game designed by sadistic puppeteers. They've become warriors in a lawless territory, forced to band together or face each other in blood-soaked showdowns. Love, trust, future plans all seem to evaporate into the stale air. In their place is a raw survival instinct, sometimes punctuated by an offhand, bitter chuckle about the sheer absurdity of it all. Some rooms echo with the sound of desperate negotiations and whispered alliances, a fleeting attempt to restore a semblance of order amid absolute chaos. "I swear," one player hisses to another while barricading a door with a fallen mattress, "if I see one more person trying to steal my spot, I'll go full SpongeBob on them." By now, the fallout has been extensive. Several players lie motionless, casualties of both the organized chaos and the spur-of-the-moment betrayals. Meanwhile, those who remain are no longer just participants in a series of risky games. They're survivors in a battlefield where every face is marked by suspicion, and every shadow might hide a threat, either from a rival player,
or from the faint echo of the front man's looming presence. The dorm's walls, once a place of forced camaraderie and the promise of an imminent escape, have transformed into a makeshift coliseum of mistrust and bloodshed, and then, as if choreographed by fate itself, dawn begins to break. The first rays of light creep over the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows on walls stained with the night's misery. In that early light, the survivors, battered and bereft of any illusions about safety, gather in a silence that speaks volumes. Then did the masked men decided to come in and quell the fight after lots of bloodshed. In one quiet corner, a small group huddles together, clutching remnants of hope like tattered blankets against the coming storm. They talk in low voices about what might be next. Some speculate about more rigged games, while others wonder if the madness of last night was just a prelude to even more unspeakable horrors. "I don't know about you guys," one whispers, "but I'm done with drama. If I wanted a bloodbath, I'd watch my favorite horror flick. This is too real." In the end, as the dorm settles into an uneasy quiet punctuated by the occasional groan or sardonic remark about last night's fun, one truth becomes painfully clear. Safety is a myth, trust is a luxury, and in a place where every shadow hides a potential enemy and every friend might turn into a foe. At the start of this unforgettable episode, the tension is already sky high. The players, who have been fighting tooth and nail for survival, are forced to confront a brutal truth. Cheating in this game comes with a very price: death. The grim display of the bodies of player 111 and his co-conspirators serves as a stark reminder that no one is above the rules. Here, the game organizers make it abundantly clear that while the challenges may seem random or even fair on the surface, any deviation from the rules will be met with swift and deadly punishment. It's like being forced to attend a life-or-death school assembly where the lesson is brutal: follow the rules or else. This opening scene sets the stage for everything that follows, as the players realize just how high the stakes are in this contest for survival. Soon after this horrifying reminder, the players are given what seems like a beacon of hope, a fair chance, they're told. But hold on tight, because just when you think the game might still be a level playing field, the rules change. In what is formally announced as part of the fourth game, the contestants are instructed to pair up with another player. For a moment, it feels like a chance to band together, to find a friend in this hostile environment. However, the initial hope is quickly dashed when the players learn the twist. They are not partnering up to help each other, but to face off in a head-to-head battle in a simple, yet merciless marble game. Now let's talk about this marble game. Think of it as a bizarre throwback to childhood playground days, but with an ultra-dark twist that makes every tap of the marble sound like a death knell. Each pair is given a simple instruction. Within 30 minutes, the goal is to collect all the marbles from your partner. Sounds easy on paper, right? The rules seem straightforward, and one might even think it's a chance for a fair contest. But the grim truth is that in a world where survival is all that matters, friendships are disposable, and trust is as rare as a free lunch. In this game, marbles become a symbol of hope, a possible lifeline, or the last remnants of dignity in a system designed to crush human bonds. You can almost hear the irony in how these tiny objects, often associated with innocent play, are now the battleground for some of the most gut-wrenching decisions the players have ever been forced to make. As the game unfolds, we're introduced to the very human element often hidden behind high-stakes survival challenges. Two characters, Sae-byuk and player 240, Ji-young, are given a moment of vulnerability as they share pieces of their life stories. In a pause from the relentless brutality of the game, these conversations reveal the deep fissures and hidden hopes in each player's past. Sae-byuk, with her fierce determination to survive, reveals the things that drive her: hopes, losses, and the desperate need to keep going, even when the odds seem stacked against her. Ji-young, whose life has seen more than its fair share of hardship, listens closely. As she uncovers the layers of Sae-byuk's story, she comes to a bittersweet realization: some lives are simply too valuable to lose in this game. In a moment that is as beautiful as it is tragic, Ji-young sacrifices herself. With her parting act, she declares that Sae-byuk must have a chance to keep living, even if it means losing a friend along the way. Imagine having to choose between your own survival and ensuring someone else, someone you've just come to trust, lives on. It's a heart-wrenching decision that underscores the deep emotional scars the game inflicts on everyone involved. While Sae-byuk and Ji-young's story tugs at the heartstrings, other players are caught up in their own struggles and deceptions. Take Sang-woo, for instance. Known for his cunning and steely nerve throughout the series, he finds himself in a situation where his sly maneuvering takes center stage. In a twist that might leave you shaking your head in disbelief, Sang-woo deceives another contestant, Ali. There's something almost theatrically tragic about watching a character you might sympathize with choose betrayal over genuine human connection. In this game of marbles, every tactic counts, even if it means tricking a fellow player into forfeiting his marbles and, with them, his chance at survival. The sheer audacity of such a move move forces us to question where loyalty ends and survival begins. It's as if the game has a twisted motto: in a world without mercy, only the slick and heartless come out on top. The loss experienced by Ali isn't just a number on a scoreboard, it's a reminder that even the smallest acts of betrayal can ripple out to shatter lives completely. Then there is Deoksu, whose participation in the game shows yet another side of this cruel contest. Facing off against his partner and supposedly loyal henchman, player 278, Deoksu takes part in a deadly showdown that is as physically intense as it is emotionally jarring. In a display that blurs the line between a brutal power play and a test of sheer determination, Deoksu proves that in this game, sometimes simply winning isn't enough, it's winning at any cost. The struggle between him and his partner encapsulates the ruthless environment. You can't afford to care, and any connection you form might be the very thing that leads to your downfall. The victory he secures isn't celebrated, it's a bitter necessity in a situation where every decision has life-altering consequences. The game forces each participant to strip away layers of morality until only the raw instinct to survive remains, no matter how cruel the methods might be. Yet perhaps the most striking and emotionally charged twist comes through the relationship between Gi-hun and player 001. From the very beginning, Gi-hun is shown as someone who is not just fighting for his life, but is also burdened by the weight of his past decisions and failures. In this round of the game, Gi-hun is paired with an old man who, at first glance, appears vulnerable due to his fading memory and bouts of dementia. Seizing what he believes is an opportunity, Gi-hun plays a tactical move by exploiting the old man's condition in hopes that this weakness will secure his own survival. It's a decision that is as cold as it is calculated, a move that seems to belong more to a chess game than the desperate, emotionally charged struggles of the players. However, the twist unveils that this old man, whose identity is later revealed as Oh-il-nam, has been more than he appears. In a shocking reversal, Gi-hun discovers that Oh-il-nam was fully aware of the game's cruel dynamics all along. It turns out that the old man was not the defenseless participant he first seemed to be. Instead, he was playing his own subtle game. The relationship that develops between Gi-hun and Il-nam is one of the most emotionally complex in the series. Despite the fact that Gi-hun's initial move was rooted in desperation and a drive to win at any cost, the old man, Oh-il-nam, shows a tender side by referring to Gi-hun as his ganbu, which translates to a trusted friend. This moment shakes Gi-hun to his core. It's as if the universe is tossing a double-edged sword. The very act of betrayal that Gi-hun believed would guarantee his survival instead leads him to a profound confrontation with guilt, regret, and the bitter reality of his situation. Il-nam's gesture is not one of mockery but of a genuine, if tragic, affection. He seems to understand that despite the monstrous nature of the game, the players are still human beings with feelings, regrets, and a need for connection, even if that connection is marred by the knowledge that it was born in the midst of death and desperation. For Gi-hun, this revelation is a heavy burden, a reminder that in this twisted game, no move comes without consequences, and every victory leaves a trail of shattered hearts in its wake. As the episode draws to a close, the emotional and psychological toll of these experiences becomes more apparent than ever. Gi-hun and Se-byok, having witnessed the loss of close friends and allies, each loss carving out a deeper wound in their already fragile spirits, are left reeling in the aftermath. The game, with all its cunning twists and moral dilemmas, has stripped away the last shreds of innocence in these players. For Gi-hun, the game has become a mirror, reflecting all the parts of himself he wishes to forget. For Se-byok, it is a painful reminder that even when you try to hold on to hope, the world can be cruel enough to snatch it away in the blink of an eye. When the players return after the previous deadly games, they are met with an unexpected twist. Minyo is still around. You might remember that she was left without a partner during the marbles game. Somehow, the game organizers decide to give her a free pass to the next round. Imagine that for a moment. In a place where every second counts and every misstep can mean death, fate has thrown her a bone. It is both strange and ironic that a player who seemed out of place is given another chance to survive in this treacherous contest. There is more to the day than just one surprise. Not long after the players regroup, a new group appears on the island. These are the foreign VIPs. They had been watching the games from a distance and placing bets on the outcome. Now these wealthy and detached guests come to watch the remaining rounds in person. Picture a group of people with deep pockets who treat the deadly events as if they were an exotic sport. Their arrival adds an extra dose of darkness to the whole scenario. Their mere presence reminds everyone on the island that that the game is not only a test for the players, but also a twisted form of entertainment for an elite and callous audience. While the players and the VIPs get used to this unnerving new reality, we shift our focus to Jun-ho. If you have been following the story, you know that Jun-ho is the determined detective who wants to unravel the truth behind these heartless games. In this episode, Jun-ho takes a dangerous risk. Disguised as one of the masked servants, he finds himself face to face with one of the VIPs. Yes, a VIP actually makes a crude offer to him, but Jun-ho is not one to accept such advances. In a private room away from prying eyes, he turns the tables. He attacks the VIP and even manages to record the man confessing to his misdeeds. With that bold act accomplished, Jun-ho makes his escape from the island. His brave move is a small strike for justice in a place where the rules seem intentionally twisted against human decency. Now let us step into the next deadly game, one that will have the players testing not only their nerves, but also their very trust in chance. The fifth game is simple in its description, but brutal in its execution. The players must cross a narrow bridge. This bridge is only 2 panels wide, and each panel can be one of 2 types. One type is made of strong, tempered glass that can hold a person up without a worry. The other type is made of regular glass that cannot support a person and will break under even a small amount of weight. Every step taken on this bridge is a gamble between safety and falling to what can only be described as a horrifying end. The simplicity of the setup hides the sheer terror in each step, and every player has to weigh their fear against the need to move forward. As the game gets underway, the tension on the bridge becomes almost unbearable. The players near the front of the line try to mark their steps and test the panels for safety. Their fate is sealed by every slip of the foot and every miscalculated step. One by one, some of them fall when their panel gives way. The sound of shattering glass and cries of despair echo across the group. In a game where there is no time to pause for breath or laughter, each fall acts as a startling reminder of the high price of a single moment of hesitation. Amid this dangerous crossing, one character stands out for all the wrong reasons. Deok-soo is known to be a stubborn and rough player who does not like to waste a second. As the clock ticks relentlessly, he refuses to take his turn quickly and decides instead to pressure others to test the panels ahead of him. In his mind, it is a smart way to clear a path without risking himself too early. Yet, this act of self-centered insistence brings him into conflict with fellow players. It is in this tense moment that Min-yo, still reeling from the twists of fate earlier, steps in with a dramatically heartbreaking act of revenge. With a mix of anger and tragic resolve, she grabs hold of Deok-soo and sacrifices herself by pulling him down into an untimely fall. Her choice is a bitter reminder that even in a world where survival means everything, feelings of anger and revenge can lead to moments of unimaginable loss. While the chaos of the glass bridge consumes some of the players, another part of the group sees a glimmer of hope through a familiar face. Player 017, known for his expertise as a glassworker, steps forward to share what he knows. His experience gives him a rare advantage in identifying which glass panels are safe and which are not. In moments like these, expertise can feel like a lifeline. For a spell, it appears that the players might have found an ally who can help them navigate the deadly course of the bridge. His careful observations bring a calm and a sense of direction to an otherwise frantic situation. But just when it seems that player 017 will secure a safe path for everyone, fate steps in with a cruel twist. The front man, the orchestrator of these challenges, suddenly turns off the lights. In the darkness, the advantage that player 017 gained from his skills vanishes like a mirage in the heat. Without the guiding light, the players are left stumbling in uncertainty, with fear creeping in as they can no longer trust their eyes to show them the safe panels. The sudden shift in the game smudges any order that had been painstakingly built and leaves the room in utter chaos. Time is now a merciless enemy, and as minutes tick away, desperation increases. It is during these frantic moments that Sang-woo makes a heartbreaking move. Known for his cunning mind and his willingness to do whatever it takes to survive, Sang-woo does not hesitate to push player 017. In a shocking and ruthless act, he forces player 017 off the bridge, ensuring that the last trick panel is revealed only by this violent push. This is a turning point in the game, a moment that shows how the survival instinct in a harsh world can erode even the smallest shred of loyalty. In a game where everyone is on edge, Sang-woo chooses his own path to safety, even if it means sacrificing someone who was once a beacon of hope. After all these shocking events, the final part of the Glass Bridge Challenge concludes with only 3 players managing to cross successfully. Gi-hun, Sang-woo, and Se-byuk emerge as the survivors of this fearsome ordeal. Their journey across the fragile bridge is a mixture of luck, skill, and that raw determination to stay alive no matter what. But the game is not done playing its cruel tricks just yet. In one final blow of madness, explosions rock the remaining panels of the bridge. The sudden blasts shatter the glass to pieces and injure the 3 survivors. Imagine the scene. After enduring so much terror already, a massive explosion adds a final layer of pain and chaos. The odds of survival shrink further, and the consequences of each step become even more unbearable. Gi-hun, Sang-woo, and Se-byuk stood as the final 3 in the quiet setting of the contest. They dressed in crisp, formal outfits that looked neat from the outside while their past and pain lay hidden within. Se-byuk concealed a severe stab wound from the glass bridge explosion beneath her calm exterior. Her measured steps and quiet gaze kept her injury a secret, even as fate loomed large. After a simple dinner that needed no fancy talk, each finalist was handed a single steak knife. The knives lay on the table like silent reminders that every moment in the game was cut and clear. There was no chatter about tradition or hope. The cold metal of the blade spoke for itself. It seemed that in the circle of life, the only friendly gesture was to see a weapon glint in the light. In the somber hours after dinner, Gi-hun eyed the 2 others and saw with stark clarity that Sang-woo would do anything to win. A plan formed in his head, as direct as the blade in his hand. He turned to Se-byuk and said, plainly and without flicker, that they should form an alliance against the man whose ambition would know no bounds. There was no flowery promise or embellishment, just a clear-cut idea meant to shift the balance in a contest where every choice cut deep. But Se-byuk did not accept the simple plan. Instead, with a wry tone that matched the grim setting, she begged Gi-hun for a promise. Her words were simple and direct. She asked that the eventual winner of the contest should look after the loved ones of the other. It was not a plea for mercy in a soft tone, but a request dressed in practicality, one that spoke of care in a place where care was rare. Even in the midst of danger, her request showed that even in harsh games, something human might still survive. As the night deepened, Gi-hun could no longer keep his dark plan hidden. With the quiet of sleep cloaking the room, he tiptoed across the space where Sang-woo lay deep in slumber. His goal was clear. He would free the game of Sang-woo by ending it before the man could destroy everything in his relentless pursuit of victory. Every step was deliberate, much like the swing of a knife in a moment of truth, and as he moved, his mind steeled itself for the action he thought necessary for the greater good. Just as Gi-hun raised his hand toward Sang-woo, fate took a sudden and witty twist of its own. Se-byuk, who had been watching and silently weighing every word and movement, stepped forward. With a firm and unsentimental tone, she declared that Gi-hun was not to become a murderer. In that single moment, her clear words sliced through the night as surely as any knife. There was no time for debate. Her voice stopped him in mid-step and showed that even in a place where souls were bartered, there were lines that some were unwilling to cross. The sealed promise that could have turned the tide was now replaced by a larger, more pressing worry. Se-byuk's hidden wound began to worsen as pain asserted itself against the act of keeping secrets. The injury, which she had carried silently since the glass bridge explosion, grew in its urgency. With the situation ticking in its own dire time, Gi-hun put aside his plans for bloodshed and called for help. His call rang out like the sound of a ticking clock, counting down each precious moment, a reminder that sometimes survival depended on quick and careful action rather than on the sharp edge of revenge. While Gi-hun was away in search of aid, Sang-woo saw his chance to act. In the quiet interval when Gi-hun could only hope that help would come in time, Sang-woo struck in a cold and calculated move. With a swift motion that left little room for remorse, he ended Se-byuk's life. The act was done with such precision that it bore the unmistakable mark of someone who would stop at nothing in a game where human life was just another commodity. The silence that followed the brutal deed was as sharp as the knife that had been so ceremoniously delivered after dinner. No sooner had the deed been done than the guards arrived on the scene. They came silently and efficiently, gathering Se-byuk's lifeless body as if picking up an item from a routine checklist. Their movements bore no traces of sorrow or hesitation. In their world, every life taken in the contest was just a part of the game's unyielding rules, a cold routine performed with neat precision. The sight served as a stark reminder that the game's law was absolute, and even the closest bonds crumbled before its unflinching face. When Gi-hun returned with the help he had called for, his heart was heavy with both anger and grief. The sight that met him was not of a reforming act, but of cold betrayal, his hopes dashed by the reality that Se-byuk was gone. In a burst of fury that was as raw as it was brief, he attacked Sang-woo. His actions were straightforward, fueled by a mix of heartbreak and the need to set right the wrongs that this contest had laid upon him. Every move he made was a strike at the injustice of it all, a clear message written in swift and unrelenting action. Yet the game's rules were not open to personal grudges. The guards did not leave room for a drawn-out battle between two men whose feelings were as mixed as the dark night. They stepped in as quickly as they had arrived earlier, halting Gi-hun's attack with a firm presence that made it clear that chaos was not permitted in this meticulously arranged contest. Their intervention was as tidy as it was effective, stopping further bloodshed without fanfare or apology. On the other side of this grim stage, another chapter of the contest unfolded with equal speed and unexpected wit. Junho, having reached another island in his own journey, had hoped for relief from the relentless pressure of the contest. But the island had its own dark surprises waiting. Before he could settle into any sense of calm, he was tracked down by the watchful eyes of the man known as the front man. There was little pretense in his arrival, and Junho soon learned why today the game was as unpredictable as a dark joke told in low tones. In a moment that no one could have foreseen, the front man revealed himself not as a stranger, but as In-ho, Junho's own brother. There was a peculiar twist in the tale when blood ties found their way into the clutch of a contest run by cold logic. The revelation was as blunt as the knife that had been handed out earlier that night, and it stripped away any lingering hope for a friendly reunion. It was simply family in the harshest form imaginable. Without wasting time on pleasantries or idle chatter, In-ho moved straight to the heart of his purpose. He attempted to recruit Junho into his fold, offering him a clear choice in a situation where choices were as scarce as warm words. The offer was made with a mix of practicality and unwavering resolve, as if to say that loyalty in this game was not about dear feelings, but about survival on the hardest terms. Junho, standing firm in his own beliefs and with little patience for manipulation, refused the proposal with quiet finality. The refusal left In-ho no space for gentle persuasion. With a calm decisiveness, he drew a weapon and fired a shot without a word wasted. The bullet found its mark on Junho's shoulder almost as quickly as a wink, marking the end of any hope for gentle negotiation. The shot was short and stark, an embodiment of the game's ruthless logic where every no was met with sudden and unforgiving yes when it came to violence. The injury caused by the shot was immediate in its effect. Junho, stunned by the sudden pain and unable to muster his strength, began to tip over. In the next swift moment, he lost his footing on the rocky edge of the island. The fall was as simple and tragic as any dark storyline in a tight script, with gravity accepting its final task without pause. One moment Junho stood with defiant eyes, and the next, he tumbled over the cliff into the vast, dark sea. The sea below, cold and indifferent, took him in without any ceremony. His fall was a punctuation mark to a chapter written with hard choices and irrevocable actions. The waves swallowed his figure as quickly as they could erase the memory of his presence on the island. What had begun as a search for respite ended in a plunge that no one could rewind, a final act that left behind only the echo of lost hope. Back in the room where emotions ran high and actions fast, Gi-hun found himself caught between fury and grief. His raw anger pushed him to close in on Sang-woo, a move born of loss and the bitter taste of betrayal. The clash that followed was as direct as it was short. As fists flew and anger met steel, the guards intervened, their presence a strict reminder that even in a world of desperate choices, the rules of the game had to be upheld without exception. The guidelines of the contest were clear. No room existed for personal vendettas or for unbridled passion to turn events into chaos. The guards, ever present and efficient, ended the confrontation swiftly and with firm resolve. Their arrival was not meant to comfort, nor to console, but to maintain the order of a contest that cared not for the tangled hearts of its players. In that strict moment, every action was reduced to its simplest form: stay in line or face the consequences. Across the dark and windswept island, Junho's story played out like a bitter tale of family and fate. His journey had brought him to a new land where he may have hoped to rest, but fate had other plans. The moment the front man arrived, the truth of the contest turned a new and surprising twist into his life. In-ho's arrival, marked by the revelation of their kinship, transformed a moment of calm into one of stark confrontation. Family ties offered no comfort in a place where trust was a luxury, and the clear message was that loyalty came with a price that few were willing to pay. In-ho wasted no time. He made his pitch to Junho with the same straightforward force that had characterized every decision that night. There was no dancing around the point or mysterious hints of hidden motives. The offer was plainly stated as a move that might save the day for one side of the contest. But Junho, with eyes that saw the hard edge of the truth, rejected the offer simply and firmly. His refusal was as clear as a bell tolling in a silent hall. The rejection sealed the fate of their conversation. In-ho, who had expected a different answer, turned sharply to action. Without a pause for regret or debate, he pulled his weapon and fired a shot that rang out like the closing sentence of a grim paragraph. The bullet struck Junho on his shoulder, a somber punctuation to a moment that would not allow for second chances. The impact of the shot was immediate and left Jun-ho unable to hold on to the rocky perch he had found for a moment. Within moments, the injury caused him to lose his balance completely. One moment he was a determined figure on the island, and the next he slipped past caution and care, falling over the cliff like Humpty Dumpty into the cold arms of the dark sea below. The fall was as swift as a whispered joke that ended before it could fully form, leaving nothing behind but the echo of what was lost. The sea took him without delay like a baby that sees sweets.
The final Squid Game is underway, and our weary hero Gi-hun faces his bitter rival Sang-woo in a showdown that is less like a neat boxing match and more like a surreal street brawl in a playground where childhood once meant laughter and now means life or death. After a brutal fight that leaves more scars than a bad tattoo, Gi-hun finally overcomes Sang-woo. But just when you think the story is heading toward a conventional finish with a clean sweep, Gi-hun refuses to end the match by killing his opponent. Instead, he appeals to Sang-woo using the game rules in a way that feels as absurd as a politician reciting nursery rhymes. Gi-hun pleads with Sang-woo to invoke the third clause of the rules so that the game comes to an end as soon as possible. Imagine having a debate over which clause really matters in your favorite rules book, only that in this case, your life and your soul are at stake. Sang-woo, unwilling to give in, takes the moment in a way that is equal parts shocking and ridiculously theatrical. He declines Gi-hun's appeal and instead makes a bizarrely poignant request of his own. In a moment that could easily be mistaken for the punchline of a very dark joke, he tells Gi-hun to take care of his mother before he turns the final act into a self-inflicted tragedy. And then, as if following the script of an over-dramatic stage play, Sang-woo stabs himself. It is a moment that leaves you simultaneously laughing in disbelief and shaking your head in sorrow. In the wake of this unsettling farewell, Gi-hun finds himself whisked back to Seoul. Instead of being greeted as a champion, he receives a bank card meant to unlock the enormous prize money that everyone has dreamed about. But life has a cruel sense of humor. No sooner has he touched the card than Gi-hun learns that his own mother has died. That twist is delivered with such cold finality that it feels like a cruel prank played by fate itself, a reminder that in Squid Game, every victory comes at a ridiculously high cost. A full year passes and Gi-hun is still haunted by the memories of the game. Traumatized and weighed down by unyielding guilt, he guards the prize money as if it were cursed treasure. He refuses to use it, convinced that spending a single dollar would betray the memory of everything and everyone lost. Despite having the kind of fortune that could make even the richest moguls break out in a fit of jealousy, he is too broken-hearted to see it as a symbol of success. Instead, the money sits there like a constant reminder of a nightmare he can never fully escape. One day, out of the blue, Gi-hun receives an unexpected invitation. The card is addressed to Ganbu, a term loaded with the bittersweet friendships and alliances formed in the most desperate of times. Opening the envelope, Gi-hun is shocked when he is confronted by a sight that feels as surreal as it is disturbing. Lying on a deathbed is Il-nam, the seemingly innocent old man who turned out to be the mastermind behind these brutal games. And here is the twist that no one saw coming. That very same man who spent his days playing childish games for amusement reveals he created the game to entertain bored and wealthy people. Il-nam explains in a tone that is equal parts confessional and mocking, "I chose our childhood games as the foundation for this competition because they were simple yet full of heart. I even took a liking to your group because it reminded me of days when life was a bit more playful." It is a moment that borders on absurdity, as if the mastermind behind a multi-million-dollar death trap were reminiscing about a lost summer camp. His confession is both unsettling and strangely humorous in its sheer audacity. Imagine the richest man in the world confessing that his favorite pastime was to repackage innocent games into a giant lottery of misery. And then, in a scene that could only be described as dark comedy at its finest, Il-nam proposes a wager with Gi-hun. He bets that before midnight, an unconscious man on the street will be helped by a passing stranger. The absurdity of this bet is not lost on either of them. It is as if the creator of this monstrous game is trying to prove that even in a world of cruelty, a small spark of kindness can still occur, if only to offer a morsel of hope in a dinner of desolation. As the clock ticks down and everything seems as grim as it possibly can be, the man is helped just in time. Il-nam chuckles softly, and after bidding farewell with the same nonchalant air he carried during his long life of mischief and mayhem, he dies shortly after. Even in the midst of such raw and chaotic turbulence, Gi-hun finds a trace of humanity he cannot ignore. Determined not to let more lives be lost to the cruelty of the game, he makes an effort to set things right. He retrieves Sae-byok's brother and ensures that Sang-woo's mother is given care using a share of the prize money. This gesture, no matter how small, feels like a final attempt to make peace with a world that has taken so much away from him. In this bittersweet act of kindness, Gi-hun shows that even a man who has survived a living hell can still have a conscience that cares about others. But the story does not simply end with a few thoughtful acts and the grim passing of a game creator. On his way to the airport with plans to reconnect with his daughter in Los Angeles, a long-awaited reunion that comes wrapped in as much hope as despair, Gi-hun encounters an
all too familiar face. The same recruiter who had once beckoned unsuspecting players into the perilous arena is now seen casually playing Dakji with a new player. For those who are not in the know, Dakji is a simple game of flipping paper tiles that once may have seemed like innocent fun, but now serves as a grim symbol of how easily fate can change in an instant. Seeing this, Gi-hun cannot help but feel that the cover has been blown. In a move that is as bold as it is unexpected, he manages to snatch the new player's invitation card. It feels almost like a scene out of a spy movie, where the hero intercepts a crucial piece of evidence during a hectic moment before boarding his flight. And rather than returning to the safety of anonymity, Gi-hun decides to take matters into his own hands. Before he even steps on the plane, he dials the number on the invitation card. The tension in that phone call is palpable, as though every ring echoes the hearts of all those who have suffered under this twisted system. Gi-hun demands to know who is really behind these sick games, his voice a mix of fury and desperate curiosity. In a moment that is so charged with emotion that you could cut it with a butter knife, the call is answered by none other than the front man. His tone is calm and cold, almost as if he were reciting lines from a script designed to diffuse anger rather than inflame it further. He orders Gi-hun to board his flight immediately, as if to say, "Save your questions for later, we have business to finish." However, Gi-hun is not one to be bullied. He cuts the call short, hangs up, and returns to the terminal.